classroom is here for you. It helps you in all you do. It helps you know you do. So tune in and now enjoy the fun. It's time for English, everyone. Studio Classroom is on the air. You can watch it everywhere. English is the way to go. So join us now, enjoy the show.
Hello, friends, and welcome to Studio Classroom on the Air. I'm Anne-Marie.
And I'm Gabe. Today is a great day to learn something new.
Yes, it is, so let's do that together. We have a really interesting lesson for you today, friends. And to start off, we are going to ask a question. And that question is, how important do you think it is to plan for the future when it comes to your finances?
Yeah, this is a great question. I think it's pretty important to think about what you're going to do with your finances. And I think it's good to be intentional. That's the word that comes to mind. Basically, you know, when you get a salary, don't just think, okay, I'm going to spend some, I'm going to save some. No, be intentional. How much are you going to save? What are you going to do with your income? Have you paid off all of your college loans, you know, those student debts? Have you created an emergency fund for you and your family? I think it's important to also think about investing, maybe in stocks or something like that. What about you, Anne-Marie?
Yeah, I would say that in the recent years, I've definitely thought more about making sure that my finances were in order, especially when it came to the future. It's definitely something I do need to work on, though. We are going to learn about one way that you can prepare for the future financially in our article called Trust Can Help Our Elders. We'll get into it in just a moment.
Trusts can help our elders. Trusts can provide a better future for our aging population. Taiwan is a beautiful island with many youthful people, but statistics show that its future looks rather gray. By the end of 2021, over 16% of the population was above the age of 65, and the birth rate was declining.
Hello everyone, welcome to Language Lab. I'm Jack. 我们先来看 youthful 这个形容词，它的意思是年轻的或富有青春活力的。譬如 No one knows how Doreen manages to keep her youthful appearance. 没有人知道 Doreen 是如何保持她的青春外貌。或者是 Ben seems so youthful even though he is in his 60s. Ben 似乎洋溢着青春活力，即使他已经60几岁了。再举一个例句 Sarah and Mason work out at the gym every day, hoping to keep their youthful figures. Sarah 和 Mason 每天都在健身房运动，希望能够保持年轻的身材。
All right, thank you, Jack. We are beginning our lesson now. Trust can help our elders. We read, trust can provide a better future for our aging population. All right, so already we see this word trust in our article, and we are going to learn more about what that means, because usually when I see the word trust, I think about it in the traditional sense of the word, right? To trust someone.
You're talking about how we use it as a verb?
Yeah. Yes, exactly. But here it's actually a noun.
Right, so we're going to learn more about what trusts are all throughout our lesson. But right there in our title, we see that they can help our elders. Now, there are different ways to talk about the elderly population. There are different words you might know. Elder is probably the one that is the most respectful, right? You could say, oh, old people, and perhaps there is a time and place for using the word old, right? But elderly, when we talk about old people, we're talking about the elderly population. There's another word that's going to come up in our lesson, and that is the word senior.
That's right. I would say in the States, that's the word that we use the most. We usually use senior or senior citizen, and that usually means someone who's over the age of 65.
That's right. Okay, so back to the word elder, and you heard me just use that word elderly. We could just say we're talking about the elderly, okay? We don't need to add the word population or elderly people. We're talking about the elderly, okay? So trust can help the elderly, or trust can help our elders.
All right, well, we read here Taiwan is a beautiful island with many youthful people, but statistics show that its future looks rather gray. All right, that's a phrase that we want to talk about here because there's a few different words we could substitute for that word gray. If we say that the future looks gray, it means that looking ahead, things don't look so good. It seems like things just might not turn out very well. There's not a very bright future involved.
Yeah, that's kind of the opposite of something that looks gray, is something that looks bright. Someone might have a bright future ahead of them. We often hear that phrase, right? But our lesson says that some people's future looks rather gray. I would also use the word grim here.
Oh, grim, that's a good one, or dim. Sometimes we use that word with this phrase as well, the future looks dim. I've also heard this phrase used with the word bleak as well.
Okay, bleak. Now I get the idea of a wilderness or an area that does not have a lot of life on it or in it. When I think of something that is bleak, like a bleak wilderness, right? So maybe we could use that word to describe the future of some people, right?
That's what our lesson says. We read by the end of 2021, over 16% of the population was above the age of 65, and the birth rate was declining. That does sound pretty bleak.
Okay, it's bleak for, our lesson says, many youthful people. Okay, well, we do have more to learn right after this.
Hello friends, welcome to InfoCloud. As I'm getting older now, I find myself having senior moments from time to time. I would forget things my wife tells me to do a minute ago. It's terrible.
Really? You're not that old. When did these senior moments start happening?
Well, I have been forgetful all my life. It's just that I'm noticing it more now. My wife says it's more like ADHD.
I think she's right. But let's talk about what it means to have a senior moment.
The term senior refers to older people in society. When you have a senior moment, you forget things or you are reacting slowly.
While not all seniors are like that, senior moments are times when a person is being very forgetful. Sometimes it can happen to people who are not that old.
Wait a minute. Where am I?
Wait, Rex, are you okay? Don't scare me.
I'm just kidding.
Oh man, I think you need to stop pretending to have senior moments and start explaining what having a senior moment means in Chinese.
我们有时候因为某种原因会出现健忘的情况，西方人会说这是 having a senior moment。Senior 是老人 ，senior moment 就是老人时刻，这是用来形容一个人突然变得健忘或是反应超慢的时刻。Dad had a senior moment and forgot mom's phone number. 爸爸突然变得老人健忘，不记得妈妈的电话号码。虽然 senior moment 经常是老人才会有的，有的时候也会发生在比较年轻的人身上。这就是今天的 InfoCloud， 我们下次云端见。
Trusts can help our elders. All these elders need health care and safe housing. But over 50% of the apartment buildings in Taiwan are more than 30 years old. They often lack elevators, forcing the elderly to climb stairs. They also may lack the safety features residents need in the event of an earthquake or a fire. Buildings need to be renewed and rebuilt for our elders.
“好的，接着来看 renew 这个动词，意思是更新、换新或重新开始。譬如 After the windows in the house were renewed, everyone felt warmer during the winter. 屋子换了新的窗户后，大家在冬天都觉得更暖和了。或者是 Val and Jessica renewed their friendship after 15 years of not seeing each other. 经过了15年没见面 Val 和 Jessica 重新开始了他们的友谊。Renew 也指延长期限，例如 You need to renew your driver's license before it expires next month. 你需要在下个月驾照过期之前去延期。
All right, thank you, Jack. Let's get right back into our lesson. We read here all these elders need health care and safe housing, but over 50% of the apartment buildings in Taiwan are more than 30 years old. Okay, let's find out what the problem with that is. We read they often lack elevators, forcing the elderly to climb stairs. Now, I want to read the next sentence as well because we see that same word again, and it's the word we want to talk about. They also may lack the safety features residents need in the event of an earthquake or fire. Okay, so we've seen the word lack there twice. Let's talk about what that means.
Yeah, if you lack something, that means you need something. Something is missing, but you actually kind of need it for some reason, right? There are many people in many countries that lack adequate food and water, for example.
Well, lacking elevators can be a pretty big deal. I remember the last apartment that I lived in, we lived on the 5th floor, and, you know, I had 2 kids, and my apartment building also lacked elevators, and that was a lot of extra work.
It was a lot of exercise, you mean?
That's true.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, there are pros and cons, right? Some people prefer living in a building that has no elevator because they know they're going to get their daily exercise walking up and down those stairs. But as you said, you felt like your building lacked an elevator. So I get the sense that you feel like maybe it needed an elevator.
We definitely did. Carrying 2 kids up and down the stairs with groceries and other things was really difficult.
That's right. You know, we can use this word with ing on the end, right? Something is lacking here. That means something is missing that we kind of need.
Yeah, that's right. Well, there's something else we want to look at in this sentence, and that is the word residents. Now, the residents are people who live in a particular building, and there's a similar word that we want to compare that with, and that is occupants.
Okay, so a resident lives in a building, as Anne-Marie said, or in a place, right? And they are staying there for a long time. It's their permanent living place, right? But if you are an occupant, that means you are just there for a temporary period of time, maybe even just a few minutes or just for the afternoon or something like that. Or if you're in an elevator, you're an elevator occupant, hopefully for no more than 30 seconds.
That's a good point. All right, so we also see another phrase in this sentence that we want to take a look at, and that is the phrase in the event of. Now, I have a very specific situation that I'm thinking of that I always hear this phrase in, and it's when I'm on an airplane.
Okay, are you thinking of in the event of an emergency?
Yes, or in the event of turbulence, and then they'll give you the instructions what you need to do if that situation happens.
Exactly. So it's basically saying in case of something. So in the event of something usually just means in case of something. In case of an earthquake or a fire, and we read buildings need to be renewed and rebuilt for our elders. Well, our lesson so far hasn't gotten into trusts quite yet. It's kind of built up this problem that we need a solution for. We're going to get into that a little bit later. Oh,
Hello, fact friends. I'm Detective Ernest Finder, and I have a very fun and mysterious fact for you today. Did you know that the oldest living animal on the planet was found deep under the ocean? No, it wasn't my Grandpa Peter going on one of his diving expeditions. I need to send Grandpa Peter a letter. The oldest animal was a sea sponge. That animal was guessed to be 1,550 years old. That makes my Grandpa Peter sound like a baby. That's today's fun fact, folks, and we'll be back.
Trusts can help our elders. Trusts can help. Rarely do people know what trusts are, and those who do may not make the best of them. A trust is a special relationship between a person and a bank. The person allows the bank to hold title to property or assets. The trust protects them from loss and benefits the beneficiary. When combined with urban renewal, trusts can be free from external interference. The funds assigned for construction can be used to enable the smooth completion of the construction project.
我们来看 asset 这个名词，它的意思是资产或财产。例如 ，What is the total worth of the business's assets？ 这个企业的资产总价值是多少？或者 Having a sense of humor is a great asset to yourself and everyone you know。拥有幽默感，对你自己和对你认识的每个人来说，都是一笔巨大的财富。再看一句。Blake got a huge raise because his boss considers him to be an invaluable asset to the company. Blake 得到了巨额加薪，因为老板认为他是公司的宝贵资产。最后来看 interference 这个名词，意思是干预或杂讯干扰。譬如 Cole's interference in the team's work caused everyone to resent him. Cole 对团队工作的干涉引起大家对他的反感。或者是 Julia told Brad she would call him back because she was getting a lot of interference on her phone. Julia 跟 Brad 说她会回他电话，因为他的电话有很多杂音干扰。再举一个例句。Bradshaw was able to make a touchdown in the football game because Cummings ran interference for him. Bradshaw 之所以能在足球比赛中达阵，是因为 Cummings 帮他制造了干扰。
Thank you so much, Jack. All right, it is finally time for us to find out about trusts. We learned about all these problems that are going on in Taiwanese society, and now we read Trusts Can Help. Rarely do people know what trusts are, and those who do may not make the best of them. So our article is saying that the idea of having a trust is not something that maybe a lot of people are familiar with, and I know I wasn't super familiar with it either until we were about to teach this lesson.
Well, you know, there are so many things that have to do with finances that I am not familiar with, like terms I've heard of, like a retirement account, for example. But I have a feeling it's the same way for me for a retirement account. Like even though I might understand a little bit about it, I probably don't make the most of it or make the best use of it. Even if you start using a retirement account or doing something with your finances, taking advantage of certain systems that banks provide, it's really good to try to have a deeper understanding of those things.
That's right. Well, we do have a phrase that that we want to look at in this sentence, and that is the phrase to make the best of something. If you make the best of something, it usually means that there's not something good going on, maybe a bad situation, or maybe something that you can control, you can't control, excuse me. But what you can control is making the best of the situation. So that means, for example, maybe you feel like you're in a situation that you can't control and maybe a lot of people are against you. Maybe you can't control what they're doing, but you can control what your response is.
I'm glad that you mentioned that usage for this phrase, because in our lesson, it's kind of saying the opposite. Like, trusts are great, but people might not make the most of them, right?
Yeah, or make the best use of them.
Make the best use of them. And I always think of that related phrase, to make the most of, right? Because you can make the most of something. That means maybe it's great, right? You're going on vacation. That's great. Are you going to make the most of your vacation, or are you just going to sit around inside of your hotel room, right? You want to take advantage of the good things in life, or, like Anne-Marie shared, turn those negative things into something positive.
Okay, so make the best of something, make the most of something. Those are some good phrases for you to know. Well, we read here, a trust is a special relationship between a person and a bank. The person allows the bank to hold title to property or assets. Okay, let's talk about what a title is.
Okay, well, the title is basically, it tells you who owns the property. It tells you who the owner is. There's something else we want to talk about in this section, and that is the word beneficiary, because we want to compare that with a benefactor. The benefactor is the one providing something that is needed, and the beneficiary, as you see in our lesson, is the one that is receiving those provisions.
That's right. All right, friends, that's all the time we have for right now. We'll be right back right after this.
How comfortable are you speaking English? Have you ever wanted to speak up in a conversation where everyone is speaking English, but you lacked the courage?
If you have a lot to say, but you're often too scared to speak, then check out today's tip that will help improve your conversation in English.
The tip we're talking about is called tracking. This is useful if you don't have anyone to practice talking with, but you do have an English teacher.
Here's how you do it. You sit in class and silently repeat everything the speaker says. This subconsciously teaches you things like sentence patterns, grammar, and syntax.
Okay.
Tracking works especially well for students in a classroom because it's silent, doesn't affect anyone around them, and doesn't require anyone else except their teacher to do.
It may be a good idea to tell your teacher you'll be trying out tracking before you do it, though, right? Sitting in class moving your mouth with no sound coming out might look kind of funny.
Is tracking something you would try? Give it a shot and check out our YouTube channel for more tips for learning English.
That is the 空中英语教室杂志 official channel. We'll see you there.
Well, we hope you found that tip for improving your English conversation helpful. Make sure you put it into practice when you can. Well, there's something from our lesson that I want to talk about before we end today, and that is the fact that our lesson said the birth rate was declining. Now, that is a known fact. Taiwan has one of the lowest birth rates in the world, so let's talk about it for a minute. Why do you think that's happening, Gabe?
This is a great question, and should it be concerning? That's another question. I think it should be concerning that the birth rate is declining. The first reason I can think of is because people want to wait longer before they get married.
Oh, okay.
They want to have more life experiences, you know, especially with social media and people traveling all over the place. It's really tempting to make that as part of your lifestyle before you get married and before you have kids.
Sure.
Right? People see kids as more of a burden now than they used to. And those are just a couple of reasons. I think maybe even just the rise and emphasis on feminism and making sure that, you know, ladies have a place in their careers and that they're not held back by having kids. All these ideas contribute to a low birth rate.
That's true. And I think something I've noticed too is a general lack of support of people who have kids as well. I mean, I think if you have family around, like grandparents who can help you watch your kids, that's really helpful. But if you don't have that kind of support system, it is really hard when both parents have to work to support your family.
It's true. So that's another big reason people really feel like they can't afford to have children. Friends, I'm sure you can think of some other reasons why the birth rate has been declining, and it is actually very concerning. I think you should talk about that in Chinese or English, but discuss it. Maybe we can do something about it. That's all the time we have for today. We'll see you next time for more on trusts right here on
Studio Classroom.
I am so proud to have you in my life. A good friend lasts a lifetime.